Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Concordia University's Fourth Space. Thank you for joining us for today's event, The Path of a Public Scholar. If you follow Fourth Space, you'll know that we are big fans of the public scholars. This is an opportunity to hear some stories from the past and the present. We would like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located in unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. We respect the continued connections with the past, the present, and future in an ongoing relationship with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. Here at Forest Space, we work with our university community to help mobilize knowledge. We co-create daily activities examining research questions and projects in development all across the university. We're running today's event as a live stream to both YouTube and as a Zoom meeting. And for those of you joining us on Zoom, we welcome your comments and questions into the chat. We'll try and do a little Q&A maybe at the end. We can read those out. For those of you here in the space, if you have any questions, comments later on, just raise your hand. We'll run the microphone over to you. Okay, with that, it's very much my pleasure now. Hand the microphone over to doctoral candidate in the Department of Geography, Planning, and Environment, and also a public scholar alumnus from 24-25, Alex Pache. Alex, it's great to have you back.
Thanks, Doug. Good afternoon, everybody. We're here today with a cohort of public scholars from this year. And I'm from last year's cohort, and the public scholars are a group of students, PhD students specifically, that are committed to communicating research to a broader audience. So today we're just going to have a pretty casual conversation about our current experiences in public scholar program, my experience, and just in graduate studies in general. And we'll begin with just short introductions of our research and our names, of course, and what department we're in. You can start with you, Pramila.
Starts with me. Okay, hi. I'm Pramila Chaudhary. I'm also in Geography and Environmental Studies. My research is interdisciplinary because before starting my PhD, I have done textile design and worked with like 10 long years with different communities across India and different parts of the world. And then I thought it was a lot of applied knowledge. So I wanted to start PhD to do something which is I can do more critical thinking on what I've done with the hands. And right now I'm working with indigenous textile from India, Rajasthan. It's called Pattu, and also looking into sheep wool from the environmental perspective and sustainability. So that's about me. Thank you for asking questions.
So hi, I'm Nicole. I'm a PhD student at the Zeder Urban Landscape Ecology Lab. I study how we can use small urban green spaces to be supporting biodiversity, such as like butterflies or grasshoppers, spiders, and using spaces like your balcony or a park.
Hi, I'm Emma. So I'm from the Department of Health Kinesiology and Applied Physiology. And I research how we can use dance along with blood flow restriction training as a fun way to try and boost physical activity levels and also reduce the risk of falls. So I primarily work with older women, and we do most of our studies online to just try and increase accessibility for people as well. So yeah.
Hello, I'm Iman. I'm Iman Gudarzi. I'm a PhD student in marketing. I'm studying social media overviews, and I'm actually developing a nudging system to reduce the screen time, which gonna help us, everyone, these days, hopefully.
Great. Okay, great. Such a nice variety of research subjects. My first question is, what was your journey to getting to graduate studies? Like, what is there a through line that inspired you throughout your life? It could be experiences when you were young, throughout any part of the education system. Yeah, what was your inspiration basically to get into research? Yeah, anybody could take it up, whoever feels
I don't
most
mind
inspired.
taking it up because I've already given a little background in the introduction. As I mentioned, I really, I had few friends who were doing PhD or they did PhD, and I could see how their previous knowledge and research expanded into different areas. And that really inspired me. And I always thought about it that I will do PhD, but I never got that time to sit for the long applications and, reach out to people. You have a list of people which they really inspire most of the researcher or the faculty members, but I never got that time. But during COVID, I was already working offsite and online. So work was going on. So I had a day job. And then I thought I need to pay attention to what I was always thinking about to do my push my research a little further. So I started reaching out to people again. And as I started reaching out to people, I understood it's not what I was thinking. It's very different because you have now these criteria to build your application and the proposal in certain way. You think about it in different lenses. So I was like, okay, fine. That's a good starting. And I don't know if starting is like this, what will happen later. So I kind of worked with a lot of community-based indigenous knowledges throughout India. And those are, in India, we have all the oral tradition. So nothing is documented or nothing is research based. And most of our research is published or presented by others, I would say. So it was kind of a moral responsibility also. So there are a couple of us who are from my generation, and we all did like our design journeys first. We worked in the industry or we worked in the communities, and then we thought this is one path where we have to document our own knowledge systems and talk about it, because those comes from our lived experiences. And then we are talking, that's a different thing versus somebody coming to your country and doing 2 years of research and talking about that. So there was more like both moral versus your own expectation with the work you're doing on field. So yeah.
Can you just explain, because in Canada and North America, in indigenous people, it's more obvious how to define that, but how do you define indigenous groups in India?
That's a great question, actually. Even when I came here, as I mentioned, there are very few publications from India representing the work we have been practicing from the generation. And there are these two words, a traditional knowledge or indigenous knowledge. But when I came to Canada, I started understanding more what they are like referring to in terms of indigenous, and there are these specific communities and the groups of people they're talking about. Similarly, in India, we have a lot of other categories. There are tribal people, and those are all defined categories. But I guess apart from those defined categories, the people who are working on those lands, working with the land and from generations. So it's also kind of a generational craft knowledge. So it's not like somebody came, migrated to a place and started doing something. So they are from those lands and they are practicing from those lands. So that's how we define indigenous practices from India. People who are on those lands and working from the several generations,
right,
and passing on that knowledge through oral traditions, basically.
Right.
So it can be textile or any craft practice or
right,
anything else as well, which is oral tradition, I would say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anybody
I
else?
can go next if you want. I have the mic already. Yeah. So I actually come from industry. So I had some years of working as a product manager and a consultant in different companies. And when I was doing marketing stuff, I knew that all the companies try to sell more. They just try to understand the customers, all those things. And there's only one answer for that: understanding and researching your customers. So that actually inspired me to learn more about the customer and learn more about the research part. So I became interested in research, but at the same time, we don't have many companies who are doing very ethical, and we have many privacy issues coming up with the marketing solutions, with marketing departments. So that was another issue that I wanted to actually address somehow. And I was struggling with social media. So I said, okay, that's the thing. So you need to study social media for the good, not just for having more influencers, how influencers can be more successful. No, let's help users to reduce the screen time, control their screen time. So that that was actually the inspiration and motivation for me to continue my education at the PhD level.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. No, I think for mine, I actually didn't really ever plan to go to grad school. I think maybe everyone else around me saw it coming. I did not. So I started as a dancer originally. So I did some training like in my hometown and then a little bit in the States. And kind of when I was coming out of high school, you kind of figure out, okay, either you're doing a Bachelor of Fine Arts and you try and go professional after, or you do something else. And I had a fairly high injury rate, so I decided to do the something else route. So I thought, okay, I'll go into like exercise science, and then that will be good for injury prevention. I'll work with dancers in injury prevention. And I got quickly into the courses and then realized that actually I didn't want to work in that field. But I lucked out. There was a new lab instructor in the department who was doing some dance research. So I talked to her after class on like their first day and then got involved with projects there. So originally it was looking at how in-person dance classes can be used to improve balance and postural stability among adults who are living with intellectual disabilities. And that was a research collaboration with a group in the States at Saratoga College, or Skidmore College, sorry, in Saratoga. And eventually we got contacted by an older adult group, and then they started up a sample there. So we were really just doing the data analysis for them. But with COVID, it shut down. So we got permission to do the program online. And then that's how my research started. So it actually started in undergrad. And then I continued to do a master's because it was also still COVID. I liked it. It was very fun. I got to teach dance classes. That was great. So I kept going. And then with funding and everything else, then I decided to keep going and do a PhD. So I stayed for quite a long time, which I didn't expect, but I like it.
Great. Nicole.
So I'm from Hong Kong and I started my undergrad there in ecology. And then there were a lot of opportunities that I tried throughout where I was like looking at environmental education, or I did some research internships and I really didn't know what I liked. But through that exploration, I had a lot of opportunities to really see what being in a lab would be like, and then finding topics I was interested in, and then realizing I really like urban biodiversity and research about that. And so it kind of just fell into place that there were opportunities to expose me to that. And I deliberated for a long time, like, should I do a PhD or like a master's first? Because I wasn't sure. And then everyone was like, yeah, just do a master's first if you're not sure about committing to a PhD. And so I started my master's at the Zeder Lab here, ended up really loving it. So many opportunities, like way too many for a 2-year master's program. And so I decided to fast track into a PhD because a longer master's is essentially, yeah. So.
Great. Put it over there. I have my little mic. And I'll touch in a bit with my experience as well. For me, I studied tree rings and how they record environmental change over the past millennia, past few millennia. And for me, it was really, I kind of fell into graduate studies, like that seems to be an experience of other people as well. And yeah, I've always been passionate about the environment and seeing the environment change, especially parks around, like natural areas around where I grew up on the South Shore of Montreal, just watching them get smaller and then watching certain parts get protected and wondering like how that's all connected and what deserves to be protected and why are things changing. And then it just so happened that there was a new professor in our department, geography and planning environment, and we got along well, amazing field work. And so that attracted me to was field work in the mountains in Gaspésie, and I've always wanted to go there. And then just I developed a relationship with the research, but also a good relationship with my supervisor. And then opportunity just came along, and awesome field work kept coming along, and funding as well. And then I just ended up doing a PhD through that path. And a bit what Emma touched on of how you chose your lab. I wonder if anybody else could touch on that. I think it's a really important thing for graduate students in general to know how to pick a lab and how the thought process of picking a lab, picking a supervisor, picking a subject. So if anybody else could touch a bit on how you picked your lab and your research project specifically, and yeah. You don't have to go first every time.
Again, it's a very tough question because, as I said, I come from design background, textile design, and also industrial design, and it's all learning by doing. So there was a lot of material interactions. And I grew up in a place, in a province in a way, which one side, where I lived, it was having a mountain and a river and a farm. But all my summer vacation in the same province, I used to spend with my grandmother, and it was totally desert, a literal desert. So a camel coming to home, getting water, and like it seems like now fairy tale, but it was a real life experience. In last 15 years, whenever I started going back, it's kind of slowly vanishing. There is no livestock anymore. Nobody's spinning wool anymore, but they do have those skills, and they started spinning now the material which is in their vicinity, which is all synthetic and fossil fuel based materials. So it was always, I didn't had a right answer to like from where to start, but there was this big question on my mind all the time. And while working back in India with different communities, and they have different practices, and seeing most of the time, they are placed designers over there in terms of doing a design intervention, which I don't like that word intervention, because when I'm on field working with them, I'm learning so much, and it's kind of a collaboration. So, but in both the scenario, what was happening, they had this knowledge, but material have totally changed, and we can see the climate change happening. So I wanted to bridge somehow this whole narrative and have this environmental aspect to the lens to my work. So I specifically looking for people who has that kind of knowledge system. And I found Nalini in our department. She's a great professor. No, and also Nalini is, I met a lot of people online before applying, but with her, what happened, Nalini is my supervisor, basically, Nalini Mohabir. And it so happened, and when we were talking online with each other before even applying for the course, I got to know that she has her roots in the same province as well. So there was a context, because if I find somebody else, first of all, why I'm doing PhD in other part of the world, not in India? That's another question altogether. I'll address it later. But this was really amazing. We were just like few cities apart, like 3 or 4 hours of distance, and that context was really amazing to meet somebody in other part of the world who can understand your context, and you can build that study. So that's how I found my supervisor. And as I keep mentioning, my practice is from more applied and material based. So when I came here, I was trying to see textile people, and I came here in winter, so I could not find anybody. Everybody was hibernating. So I'm like, where are the people? And then in spring, there was a symposium. I was already reaching out online and figuring out there are some clusters and there is a milieu and things like that, but I can't see people physically. So there was a symposium happen, which was here. It's called Homemaking. And I could see all the people who are working with textile, but across the campus in terms of interdisciplinary studies to art history to every kind of thing they are doing. They all were here. So I just jumped in, started connecting to everyone because I already did a lot of research on them online all that winter. And then I became part of textile and materiality cluster, which is in Milieu. And from there, I started like developing my project further, so which has 2 sides. It's a long answer, but I think so it's important for PhD people. There is no fixed path and there is no fixed lab. And our all work is always, if we are in the same department, also we are doing different work, different projects and different lenses to the same project maybe. So I think so it's whoever is listening, don't hesitate, apply and reach out to people. There will be conversation and you will get the perspective how you can build your work together. Right. So that's about me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like I shared a little bit about how I just kind of talked to my professor after class. So that was a really easy way to get in. And then she was working with another professor in our department. So then eventually when she transferred universities, I was also working with him as well. I was co-supervised for my master's, and then I'm just in the Bergdahl lab now for my PhD. But I think beyond just like the research questions themselves, I think it's also important to consider like personalities when you get or when you're trying to choose a supervisor. Like making sure that you have a good fit with each other and that you get along as people, I think makes your grad life a lot easier. Because you are going to be interacting with them quite heavily for 3, 4, 5 years. And there is like a PhD, it's a job, but it's also a big part of your life. So you just want to make sure that you're putting yourself in a good position as well, so it's not too stressful and things like that. So talking to other grad students who are in the lab, other grad students who have left the lab about their experience, I think is also important before you sign up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for my research, where we have to do weeks on end in remote areas, in cabins, you really test the supervisor-student relationship because you're living together for weeks. And there's been ups and downs, but it's not obviously not the case for every type of research, but it's really important to get to know your supervisor, and like you said, talk to people who've been in the lab previously.
So for me in undergrad, I did get to do an internship, luckily, with my current supervisor, Dr. Carly Zeter. It was online because it was COVID at the time. So it was through My Tax Canada. So they had a Global Link international research internship thing. And that was my first introduction to the lab. I worked with the PhD student closely, who is now one of my colleagues and friends. And I thought, wow, if I could be 12 hours away in time zone difference and like it so much online through Zoom, I would like the lab itself also. And because I was looking for a master's at the time that was research-based, that is also apparently really hard. And so I think I just kind of was lucky that with funding and everything and the opportunities and already being in contact with this lab and liking it so much, it became one of the main places I wanted to go, because I did want to get like an experience abroad as well. So I wasn't just staying in Hong Kong, because that's not where most urban ecology research is. So yeah, that's how I haphazardly kind of got to be in my current lab.
Thank you. Yeah, mine is kind of similar, but as Pramila said, it's not only one path for everyone. And I know that different universities also have different situations. In JMSB, in our faculty, it's like you have around 2 years to find your supervisor or something. So because you're going to be funded by the committee, by the whole university. So it's not like you need to choose a supervisor to get into the program. So you can start your program, just take your time, take courses, and build that relationship, talk to other people, talk to other students, and understand what's happening, what are the dynamics in the department. And then you can choose a supervisor, and you should see if there is a fit between you and them. And if it's always good to have a supervisor who has a kind of expertise in the field that you are working, because again, in business is a bit different from other faculties maybe. So it's like a supervisor can supervise you without any specific expertise in that field, let's say, but it's gonna really help you if they have the expertise, because they can facilitate your work and accelerate your journey. So yeah, that's my experience of finding my supervisor. And again, for the lab that you were talking about, it's not because in business schools, it's as you apply for a program, you're gonna be admitted by the committee, not by a supervisor or a faculty member. So sometimes we might have a misunderstanding of, okay, there's a lab there, so it's accessible to everyone, but it's not true. So you need to know who is running that lab, and if you want to work in that lab, you need to have communication and relation with that person. So that's another story. So that's my experience in JMSP.
Right. That it seems like it is quite different than other departments in that,
Yeah, exactly.
at least for my department, you have to have a supervisor going into it. And I think that's the case for most other departments as well. But it also shows that it's important to do your research to find out what the different contexts are for different programs. For me also, what was really important, if there's any undergraduate students listening, is just to go in our department. We had an honors program, so you do a little research project as for course credits in your final year. That really opened up a lot of doors for me and for a lot of people in my department. Okay, let's dive a bit into Public Scholar Program more specifically. What inspired you to join the Public Scholar Program, to do public outreach, to feel that need to really speak to a broader audience about research?
I will go first. It seems like it's my turn. As I mentioned, I met a lot of people. I was chasing a lot of people online, not chasing, basically learning about their journeys and their works. And I didn't see anybody physically who these people are. And I wrote emails to many people. So one of them, who's also previous public scholar, Vanessa, and she was really, really kind. Without any hesitant, she just asked a meeting, which we connected online that time, and we both shared our work, and it seemed like both our paths prior to PhD had similar kind of journey which we have studied or kind of work we have done in the industry. So there was like a lot of common points, and then she's like, I will connect in one email to these many people, and then it's up to you what you do with them. I'm like, okay, that's really nice. I mean, at least you have some head start. And she connected me to all the professors which I was really looking forward to connect with. And then I was sending them individual emails and all of that. And then later in that year, she became a public scholar, because I was closely watching her journey as well, because it's similar, our work was overlapping in a way. So it was really interesting with her public scholar journey. She could really mobilize a lot of knowledge, which, as I said, we both had similarities, but I didn't see that kind of work happening in the campus or having that kind of a knowledge system shared in the public spaces. So there was one reason I was like, that makes sense to be in that kind of, and whenever she was, not only she, in that whole cohort, anybody was hosting any event, I was trying to attend those events and just have a feel that what exactly is happening in the space. And with each event, there was a new knowledge which you really don't know, or it's kind of also help you with your own journey of a PhD, that how you can have that kind of a way of thinking or resources or figuring out within the university other things. So then I looked into the program, and then I figured out there are so many criteria to get into the program. So first was the training, and it was my initial year, so I could only do training, and comms was a really end goal for me to complete at least within 2.5 years. And I just did my comms. So I did a training a year, 2 years prior, because I guess we have 2 years of timeline within that we can apply. And then I just did my comms, and then right after I applied, it was like just 1 week or 2 weeks of time. But it was really rewarding experience being public scholar. But before that, knowing anybody else's journey, like for a whole year, and looking through different projects, it was really inspiring. So that's why I decided to apply in first place.
Great. And what about public outreach?
Yeah, so in
Inspired you?
public outreach, as I mentioned, she hosted a lot of, not only Vanessa and other people, like hosted a lot of events here in this space, but within the campus, and they were also writing things. They were also like, so through social media, which is, for me, my work is more shared through Instagram as a tool, and also LinkedIn in a way. And all these places I could see how their all the people who were in that cohort for the public scholar, how it is changing and how the way they are now communicating their journeys through different platforms, different media publications. So I thought it's very important because it's not, there's already, and I also work with a lot of communities and to build communities. So it's always a barrier between academia and outside. People are like, we cannot come into that space. And this workshop is not for us. So I was like, oh, we will come to you and do workshop with you over there. And we'll try and see how we both can come in a middle space where academia and the outside world can meet. So I thought it's a great opportunity to disseminate knowledge in apart from university, and also because most of our PhDs, we are trying to do a real life work in a way. If you're doing with plants or trees or materials or people, eventually humans are the one who are going to consume that knowledge. So how we make it accessible, because otherwise academic language is very difficult versus what we can do with the public scholar. So I think it's a great opportunity to open up those areas of sharing knowledge.
Absolutely. Just for context, also to take part in the public scholar program, by the time you start, you have to have done your comprehensive exams and also have done a training program, a free training program. I believe it's called strategic communication. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, it was like, I am a kind of extroverted person, communicative person, something like this. I really don't like sedentary work. I don't like to just sit at my office or at home, do my research and all those things. No, so I just wanted to make my journey, my PhD journey, a bit more exciting. So that's why I participated in the whole public scholar program. And I got the training for the first time, and then I applied, but I rejected. So I couldn't get in last time. So I realized that, okay, the next time, if you want to apply, you need to apply what you've learned. So I went through a huge process, and I communicated with our communication advisor in our department, and I said, okay, I want to apply for the public scholar. And she helped me to publish something, publish an op-ed in the Montreal Gazette. And that was a good start point for me to again apply. And this time I actually made my application and make it better, and I could get it. But the whole program for me was really to outreach to people, because I know that what we are doing sometimes, I'm talking about business, sometimes it doesn't make sense to the practice people or the public. So it's very niche, very sophisticated. And I honestly, personally, I didn't like that. So I wanted to work something that has impact on people, on the public or the practice people, professional people. So that was the only journey that I found, which quite matched my capabilities, my interests. So I applied for that. So that's my journey.
Yeah, I think kind of building off of both of the points, like I think one of the nice things about studying health sciences and exercise science is that it is so practical for people. Like you're trying to improve people's health. And I think it's only fair that people learn how to improve their health. If we have the research, it should be shared. You want that to go into the community. So just as a point of ethics, I think it's important that we're able to communicate publicly what we do. So taking out the jargon, really breaking it down to what people actually need to do in their lives. And I also feel quite passionately, like I grew up in a lot of community centers and with family who are like healthcare providers as well. And I think that has like influenced a lot of how I view that kind of like science versus real life, in the sense of I saw them helping out and running programs that were preventative. So increasing physical activity levels to help with cardiovascular disease, for example. And those programs only really work if they are designed with the users in mind. So kind of having a perspective of both, well, we want to share the information that we learn, but also we want to work with people to make sure that our research actually makes sense for them. And so I think being a public scholar, you get a good kind of launch pad to be able to reach out, find those people, connect with them, talk to them, and then build programs that actually suit them better, and then go back and research them, make sure that they work, and then improve them, feed them back, you know? So it's a cyclical thing. And I also think that the public scholar program, like we have a lot of different opportunities in ways to reach out to people. So whether that's writing op-eds, or if we wanted to do like a video series, or we have events that we can host. So one of the nice things is that we have kind of a year to just experiment and try things out. And then we can see what lands, what works for us, what doesn't, and then make edits as we go on. So I think that was kind of a good motivation to sign up for the program.
Great. Cool.
So this is going to be a bit of like my villain origin story of how I got into public outreach, because it's also
villain.
Okay, maybe not that villainous, but
Okay.
like the origin story. Yeah, because I grew up not really liking touching grass. I guess this is the story of how I became not a villain, because I really didn't know that much about ecology or biodiversity as a kid. Like in Hong Kong, you can just picture like downtown Montreal, condense it and then elongate it, and that's like the concrete jungle that I grew up in. But then at like 15, I joined an environmental education program, and they took me outside. I didn't just touch grass, I touched like a sea cucumber and saw all the intertidal things, that learned about the plant diversity in my city, because Hong Kong is subtropical. There's actually a lot there. And then like my eyes, it's like someone took off a blindfold and I could see birds that weren't just pigeons, or there's like so much life around me that I was just ignorant to until I joined this program. And so that got me into studying ecology in university. And then since then, I've been also excited about showing other people that same biodiversity. That opened up my eyes. So in undergrad, I did a lot of like random things too, to tell people about it. I had friends who we would do projects together. They started a startup to do environmental education. And then it was just fun because you get the freedom to like put out something. Like we put together a Zoom night safari jamboree for kids. So like changing the lyrics to nursery rhymes and then teaching them about the nocturnal animals and then coming up with the dance and then teaching them to the kids. So a lot of that like fun, creative, goofy stuff, but also it's productive because we're teaching people about the environment. And I really enjoyed that. And that wasn't exactly research related at first, but because that was such a huge part of why I got into ecology, I tried to integrate it into my project by using community science methods, where people actually go out and help me do my surveys. Iman also almost came to my last event. Like it's fun. Like you just give an excuse for people to go out to parks and observe butterflies, just stare at plants for 10 minutes and take data. And that is actually still science because we're making records and documenting that. And so I think like being able to incorporate what got me into ecology in my first place into my research is so important. And that just happens to be outreach also. That's why the initiative of public scholars, like I was kind of wanting to do a lot of the deliverables listed on the page anyway. Throughout my PhD, I was already doing some stuff. So I didn't really know that much about the program, to be honest. Initially, I did see that you were a public scholar last year when I was trying to sign up. And I remember meeting you at like some kind of climate emergency committee event, like way back in my first year. And then you had the Jeopardy game, which was quite fun. And that just got me thinking, oh yeah, like I know Alex, he did that stuff. That's cool. I could also try for this program. Yeah, but since the joining of the program, there have been a lot more other things I hadn't really expected, but I know you're gonna ask about that later, so.
Right, yeah. For all great stories, I think for me, I relate to all of those stories, but also just getting funding from the public and that like taxpayer money is going has funded my research. I've felt like a responsibility of giving the information back to the public. That has been a motivating factor for me. And of course, I think we could all admit that just the funding of the Public Scholar Program is a great motivating factor as well. And that could tie into our next little question, which is funding, because that's an issue for a lot of students, and understanding how to live and do your research and have a decent lifestyle. So if everybody could just share where how you got your funding, where your funding's coming from.
We were just talking before this panel that we are always looking for funding. That's another part of PhD life. And when honestly, my reference from PhD was from other countries, and all my other friends, either they go on the projects which are already funded. So you go and join a lab and do the project, or the people who go and they have enough funding that they get enough stipend, so they don't have to look into anything else. That was my reference point. But when I came here, there is a funding because I'm an international student as well. So that's another layer to the whole funding situation. So our course, initially, what comes on our what do you say, offer letter. So the funding is in two parts, one which goes to our courses and the tuition, and some which is come to us in terms of the stipend, or we have another criteria on my this thing that I can teach or work as RA or TA. But apart from that, that's not enough for an international graduate student. And also this word student sounds, now I become a candidate, but initially it's always like you are a PhD student. So after working for like 10 long years and going back to the other side of the life was difficult, because you're starting from scratch here there's a new country, new continent, new city. So there is everything new, and you constantly look for the funding options, which are, because PhD is also time bounded in a way. So you don't want to do so many other things that you forget your main project. You don't focus on that, and you just look for the other things to fund your life throughout those years. So I was looking for the funding options which can fund me, but at the same time, they can help me advance my PhD work as well at the same time. So I try to look for those kind of opportunities more. And I guess Public Scholar fits really well into that criteria. It gives you freedom to experiment, as you already, Emma, in the beginning already mentioned. And also, there are many ways to share your knowledge. As you mentioned, this is a public money which we are all funded with, how we can give back. So this is also one way to give back. But if it is funded as well, it's a bonus thing, and you're more motivated to do that work. But apart from this, I've done a lot of other things before this, which were all like volunteer works. But through those works, I built a lot of connections, a lot of network, and kind of knowing about a lot of other opportunities. I will not neglect that work altogether, but those were tiring, because you're only, I love volunteering, I love community work, but at the same time, then I have to figure out something to a part-time job and then PhD. So it's like too much of work for your life to live and do PhD. So now with Public Scholar, I feel is one, and otherwise also the opportunities I look for which can fund me, but at the same time help me advance my studies, so that it doesn't go beyond its time limits.
Right.
So that's the story at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. So my funding, I've been quite fortunate actually, but it kind of starts with my master's, I guess I would say. So in my master's, I was lucky. I was able to get like grants from the Canadian government. So that was the CGS master's version for the Health Committee, so CIHR funding. And then I also won FFQS funding as well, which I was eligible for. So I'm out of province student, but because I did my undergrad here, I'm still eligible for FRQS funds, which I'm very lucky about. But because I won both, and they are, one is 1 year, one is 2 years, what they do is they just slightly offset the time. And so I basically had a year left of my FFQS master's funding when I finished, and they have a rule that if you go into a PhD, then you can keep your funding for the first year of your PhD. So that was also a motivation to continue, is that I enjoyed it a lot and I had the funding, so why not go? And so with that, that was able to hold me over until I won again the FFQS for the doctoral program for another year to keep going. So the thing for the government grants, even though like they're maybe due in September or like early October, so you have like some time to figure it out, you have a month, I would start as soon as possible, even in the summer, because they are very time intensive to write, especially a good one. And also being able to attend workshops, which the Grad Pro Skills have, they've been really helpful. And also just having other examples that you can follow makes the application process a lot smoother. So in your first year, especially if you enter in September and you only have your project in September, it's a bit of a scramble. But I think being able to have a bit more time and have some clarity about what you're being able to write helps a lot for the next round of applications as well. Yeah, so that's one of them. And then also outreach work. So Public Scholar has been one, but I've also done other knowledge mobilization programs in the past. So we have the Engage Center for Research on Aging here at Concordia, and we, through that group, have another Grace Start Foundation Award, which is a knowledge mobilization award. So last year, that was kind of my version of Public Scholar that I was able to do. So yeah, a little bit of a mix.
Oh, nice. You're fluent. Yes, there are a bunch of different grants and scholarships that you can apply. But the only thing that I would say is just to make sure that you can balance between the time commitment and the money that you are receiving, because that's very important. For example, if you do a TA or RA, it's good, it's decent, but sometimes they take a lot of time. But if you can apply for SHIRC, FRQS, or all those governmental scholarships and grants, they are a bit better because you are focusing on your work. So it's like just you can fund your work. So that's the best option in my opinion. But again, in some departments, some faculties like JMSP, some profs have their own scholarships and grants. So if your work is aligned with them, so they can also fund your work. So it's like you are receiving a funding from JMSP, from university, and they can also fund you. It can be the same as FRQ. It can be a bit lower or even higher. So it depends on your luckiness. But yeah, there are a bunch of different opportunities. You can also work on campus or off campus. But again, you just need to be aware of your limits and just make sure that you're not quite away from what you were supposed to do.
So I started with the master's first, and with the master's, you still have to pay tuition, and so your take home actually, basically you're very expensive to fund, and you don't have as many opportunities as a PhD student. But luckily I had through my tax, because I did the Global Link internship that I mentioned before, they had some funding for past interns, which helped for my first year of my master's, so that I did have some take home also, good amount as well. And my supervisor had a grant that was not restricted whether or not you were a Canadian citizen or not. It's just research money that the supervisor can choose like what to put into, as long as it's a relevant research for the topic. And that happened to fit my interests. So I got through my first year like that, and then I decided to do a PhD. And then Concordia has a bunch of like entrance scholarships. They have the graduate fellowship. So that's currently what funds me. And then every year, because my supervisor also has like a minimum that she hopes that all PhD students get at least. And so I've gotten like different sources of funding each year, whether it's stuff that I've applied to, or like for an internship through MyTax again, that was last year. And then this year it's Public Scholars, and also right now NSERC, the tri-agency from the Canadian federal government, starting this year, accepts international student applicants, and a certain portion of that is available for international students. So I have to apply this year. So yeah, but every year it's like writing grants, and then when September comes, you got to check like when, okay, you got to start even before, and then September is like when all the deadlines are, and then you got to check the internal deadlines. So for 3 years now, I've been writing multiple applications. But there also happens to be a lot if you look out for it, like not just through the government. There's like smaller research grants that come from like different societies, research organizations that you could apply to if it works for your project. So that also kind of helps to like bring in some money, then that can cover research expenses that your supervisor can then move certain grant money to you. Yeah.
Great.
I just want to add to this one, for the internships, we have the Shift Center, and through them, there are a lot of internships which you can build, maybe which are already, they have already certain things which are published, but you can also propose with the community center or places where your research is aligned. So I've done like 2 of them also in last year, just to advance my work, because I was really interested in material and what they're doing. So Sucker is one of them, CP3 was another one. So these coasters are made by us. So we were doing a lot of plastic recycling in that work. So that was also another way to work with the materials, but at the same time, because this is not textile, you must be thinking it's plastic, but overall my research is intersecting with the natural material versus the fossil fuel materials, and this is also one of them. And the clothing what we wear, it also comes from that. So it was a really good balance between doing the research and having that team, because knowing their working style, working on field, because you do research on your own, but when you really want to apply in the field, it's very different. And people are working, these are live projects, they are not just like making for the classroom. So there's a different kind of thinking. So Shift is another option where people can apply for different fundings and align with their work as well. Yeah.
Great. How can we go another 10 or so minutes? Yeah. Great. So what were your expectations going into the Public Scholar program, and how were they met, or how was your experience different from your expectations?
I'll go. So yeah, because I mentioned I didn't really know what to expect. I just knew the list of deliverables, but then going into it and then starting the training and then meeting the other 9 wonderful, lovely people who each I've learned have their own like flavor to the way they do public outreach and the things that they're very good at. Like if someone could be very good at public speaking. Richie, who's not here, like has a lot of reels that he's putting on Instagram. He's really good at editing them. Yeah. And Pramila with the Substack and then writing the posts, and Iman, this is when I started to do LinkedIn, like through the Public Scholars program. And then when I looked, I think Iman, you've got a significant amount of like LinkedIn activity. I was like, so I think like seeing this amazing group of people come together and then learning from each other, that has been something that I kind of knew was going to happen. But then the extent of it, of how eye-opening it is, the different ways you could be doing it, like I get to see it through these people also. So that has been probably the best thing so far of the Public Scholars program.
Yeah, that's thank you, Nico. And yeah, that's mine was kind of similar. I knew at the beginning that okay, the purpose is just outreaching to more people, to the public, just share your ideas, share your research with them. And I think that I met the same level of expectation. So that was quite good in terms of the deliverable. I think it was also doable if you really like what you want to do. If you just apply for the funding or something, of course, no, it's a lot of work. But if you like to communicate with people, so that's very good, because the whole university, the public scholar program, they are there to help you, to support you to do whatever you want in terms of the communication and building those relations with the public. So that's the thing I really enjoy. And yeah, that's I'm meeting the expectations. Everything is good so far. So yeah, I'm happy with the program. And I saw, yeah, exactly. When I looked into different LinkedIn profiles of the other 9 people, I realized, okay, everyone is doing the job in their own way. So yeah, that's a bit different, but it makes sense, and that's true, and that's the beauty of the diversity. I always like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to think of expectations going in, just because it's almost a little vague to me, or hazy, when you're thinking, okay, like there's deliverables and that's clear, but everyone is so different that like you have to customize and individualize it to some extent. So yeah, I'm not sure I had a very like crystal clear vision of what it was going to be when I went in. But I think like you get a lot of training about, okay, here are different ways that you can reach out to people. These are different ways that you can try and communicate and reach new audiences, which is really nice because, like, for example, I'm good at an event. I'm good at public speaking. I've never published an op-ed before. So this is something that I need to learn and to train about. And then having those resources and those people who come in, they're journalists, they're experts, and being able to communicate with them, see what's interesting to the public, and understand that a bit better in more like written form, for example, has been really helpful. I think my journey has been a bit kind of starting delayed just because I was abroad for a little bit. And so I did a lot that was online. So now we're in person and it's more tangible to me. So that part I really like, is now being actually physically here. For me, it's a bit more fun because I like the interactive versus 7-hour difference on computer.
Right.
I traded spots with Richie. Yeah.
Where did Richie go?
He went to Finland. I was in Sweden.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Expectations, again, I was already doing a lot of things which are aligned with somewhere public scholar, but I never thought of it when I was applying for it. And I had no idea how intense these trainings can be and how they can change our way of thinking and putting work out there. So I have a project called Project Hand Stitch. It's on Instagram and we started in 2017. Now I say we because I just started for my own self and I put it on social media in 2017 and become a community. So we are we, and it's like all the people who are following, we are like some 3,000 people, but they're all really people who want to do that kind of a work, which is around materials, craft, mending, a lot of material knowledge, basically fiber knowledge and sustainability and everything else around it. So it has like a design, art, and this very environmental feel to it. So I was doing a lot of things on it, but now I think about it. In the beginning, we were right now also we have a lot of freedom, but we given this chance that explore however you want to do it, different mediums. So earlier I used to do only static post. Then I started making reels. I started making real-time reels where I'm really working in the lab and talking about it. I started this essay series and I've been thinking a lot about it before Public Scholar, never got a chance to do this as a task, but now I enjoy that. And there's always a back of my mind, some story going on, what I want to work on next. And for the Substack, I've been, again, in my work, Substack is important right now because a lot of people who are in this area, they are moving to Substack and they're writing, voicing their own very individualistic voice over there. So I was always fiddling that Substack is a new format, but it's a blog writing, but still it has a very different kind of a audience because everybody's expert over there. You're not the only one. So, and this is an interesting point in Public Scholar. They say that we think people know everything, but we individually all bring so much on the table, people doesn't know about it. So it's a good idea to put that knowledge out there. So what I was doing, I put little more aggressive lens to it. And even on LinkedIn, like I loved LinkedIn because I connected with a lot of people throughout my career through LinkedIn, but now putting work out there and writing in certain manner, all these small skills which you can build with this Public Scholar. I was not sure when I was coming to the program that it will be that kind of elaborate skill building exercise, but I'm glad it's happening and it's really interesting to see everyone's work. Absolutely. It's very diverse and different way to share your knowledge with the public. So yeah.
Yeah, and for me, my expectations were completely met because I just asked my friend who went through the Public Scholar program several times, like, oh, how's it going? What's it like? So if you are interested in the Public Scholar program, reaching out to any of the previous cohorts or the current cohort, I'm sure almost everybody it would be their pleasure to talk to you about their experience. One last question, and everybody touched a bit on it, but what has been rewarding about the Public Scholar experience so far? I know it's only been, I mean, y'all are already almost a third way through the program, believe it or not. Am I doing my math correctly? Yeah. So yeah, what's been rewarding so far?
Everything, I guess.
That's great.
I don't know. First of all, these 10 people, honestly, we have these monthly check-ins. And apart from that also, so Richie also, again, we both took some classes together in the beginning of my PhD and I lost touch with him. But I got to know in our first meeting that he's also one of the public scholar. So I was like, wow. And there's another friend, and all these people, somehow I knew their work, or I was inspired by their work, and they were part of the cohort. I had no idea. And now there was a chance to be with them and be friends with them, know more about them. So Laura is another person. Her work is really interesting, and I've been always like admiring her work, and now she's on board. So I'm like, yeah, this is a great opportunity to connect and really see from each other what are our methods and what we are thinking about, how she's passionate about. She always bring this very game or a fun way to talk about environmental. Otherwise environment and climate change seems like a very heavy thing and we are all suffering. But how we can make it a knowledge sharing as a joyful tool and not make people feel really bad about it, but still talk about this serious impact, because we are all living in it right now. So I think so meeting these 10 people and being with them all the time in different scenario, not in a physical manner, but just being with meetings or knowing their work, it's really rewarding. Yeah. And I will also mention Javier giving a lot of free hand to all of us, supporting our ideas, all crazy ideas everyone has. So that's another good rewarding point at this stage of the program, I would say, because we are really in the beginning. This whole summer we were just doing trainings online, so, and those were long trainings, but a really good one. So yeah, that's my.
Yeah, I think it is good. We have the trainings and then there's the deliverables. It also provides a bit more structure, I guess, to the outreach that I think a lot of us would have done anyway. But with this program, with the monthly check-ins, like I'm looking at my Instagram, which I'm now actively trying to put reels, and I know I need to like put goals of like a minimum of 2 posts a month to meet the goals that in an initial meeting with Javier, like we had set what we wanted out of this year. And so I think that has been really helpful to actually like, I'm not just going to randomly like come up with a challenge using Pokemon to teach people about biodiversity. Now I'm going to do that, but also measure the impact and know like actively at the back of my mind, I want this to reach how many people. And so I'm going to actively have goals that how many events, and also like at the end of my talks, I can share my Instagram now because I keep forgetting that. I forgot at our walk at Mount Royal. So like just starting to actively knowing to promote myself a bit more so that people stay connected through those like more passive ways that we're doing outreach. I think that has been really helpful since joining this program to like just remind me that that's what we could be doing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of both of those. Is like one, the connections are just really great. I really love learning about everyone's different research, and just in general, like I think having people around you makes grad studies really fun, and less like a job. It's just entertaining and it's a good time. So being able to have a new community and then also reach so many new people is also really fun and interesting. And then also we have accountability goals, which are helpful. But I've also been really lucky to have people reach out to me now and be like, hi, I saw your like your program. It looks cool. We should talk. Like, yes, we should. That's great. So having those people kind of just find me and contact me. Whoa, that's been really cool as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same for me. Actually, the best part is connecting to the people that you normally wouldn't connect, because not because of you cannot connect to those people, because you won't you probably don't like to push the boundaries. So with the program, it really I love the trainings because it helped me to just push the boundaries a little bit more and just connect to the people that I normally wouldn't. So that's really interesting for me. And again, the diversity of the group, learning from each other person in the cohort, that's really interesting, and the support that we are receiving. So these are all the rewarding parts of the program. And it's, again, make my program, the PhD program, more interesting and exciting. So that's how I can survive the whole program. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
PhD
exactly.
is really tough.
PhD, especially the latter part, can be really isolating. And for our department, at least, the first part you're having not every week, but like once a month, you have meetings with all the rest of your cohort, and that allows you to make connections and feel like you're not alone. But then in the later part of it, you don't have those meetings anymore, and you sort of get really isolated. And for me, the public scholar experience was that connection of having a group. We're all going through something together and having a bunch of different realms of expertise coming together. That to me was really quite rewarding. And I think we'll wrap it on that. It was some nice ending remarks. And so thank you everybody for participating. That was a great conversation. And thank you everybody for listening online, and have a nice evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who joined us in person and online for that conversation. We're going to go ahead, close up the Zoom and the live stream now, but it's already available on our YouTube channel if you wish to revisit or share it. Thanks so much, and we hope that you consider becoming a public scholar. Have a good one.